room with John and myself, and we're having a tete-a-tete, and John is willing to sign anything you put in front of him. No, I'm kidding. So if there is any, is this, we going there? So I always, whenever I have you up here, I always like to mention the odyssey that Fox has had. It's really amazing. I mean, there was a time, gosh, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when Mr. Murdoch was completely focused on the primary properties, and it was thought that Fox really wasn't interested in this space, and it really is astonishing how Fox has moved from that position to, I would say, unquestionably being the leading web presence in Hollywood, no doubt about it. With MySpace alone, I mean, accounting for how many uniques a month?
I guess it's like 65 million in the U.S. 65
million, and Fox itself, apart from MySpace?
Well, all the Fox Interactive Media sites, and there's some duplication, but cumulatively about 95 million uniques per month.
That's in addition to...
that's MySpace.
Including MySpace. And so, I mean, far outstripping anybody else, as far as I can tell.
Media companies.
Media companies. And that, of course, is only talking about the United States. We're not talking about the other News Corp properties throughout the world. And we're not talking about the potential, what that would mean in terms of news if of course, Dow Jones were integrated into that. That's not John Smelzer's area to talk about, but just trying to give you here of what's being created. I mean, it's an interactive company, the like of which has never been seen in the world before. So, in the space of 5 years, to have gone from one position to the next is really quite amazing. So, is there an overall philosophy when you think of, because mobile, of course, is only one area of your purview, so you can see the big picture. What is your sense as to where fits into the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you fast forward, 3-5 years, these devices that we all have in our hands should really just be incremental touch points to the internet, and the user experience and the ease and the access and the experience should be as simple and as ubiquitous, almost as simple and ubiquitous as on a PC. I think consumers will always have a richer experience on the PC, but all of these sort of and a lot just the state of the art that we're in as an industry, but the barriers to the greatest extent possible should come down. Users should be able to pick up their mobile device and have a near PC-like internet experience, and I think that ultimately gets us to the point that we as an industry will be amassing a huge audience around these devices, and there'll be all manner of ways to monetize that.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we were talking earlier, just this last panel, we were talking advertising models, and we talked a little bit about search, and we talked a little bit about product placement. I mean, what's your sense as to where we are at this point? I mean, it still seems like these are very primitive days.
Yeah, very, very early days, and I think look, there's money on the table right now. So if you look at really what predicated the formation of Fox Interactive Media was the shift of ad dollars from traditional media to new media. And a very simple plan is like, let's create a platform, aggregate an audience, and go capture that shift. Once you're in that sort of digital internet protocol domain, those same ad dollars that are shifting from traditional media to the internet are poised to go straight to mobile, and they're ready to go to mobile. I think we as an industry haven't served up, frankly, enough inventory to satisfy, or we haven't shown the advertisers that we have a valid model of extending that money. But that money's there to be extended. So on the one hand, it's early days. On the other hand, I think we as an industry are probably leaving money on the table right now, and that's going to become more apparent in the coming months.
What could be done? I mean, how could that money be deployed? What should we be doing?
So I think you've got to have you've got to have the experience on the mobile phone that approximates the PC, and consumers have got to be able to just open up their phone, go to the internet, experience some level of quick, easy, light, free content. I think they'll tolerate ads if we do it smartly and cleverly and we don't overwhelm them with ads in the early days. And then give them the opportunity to upgrade or subscribe to more powerful products. So if you're a heavy user of MySpace, maybe you log on to myspace.com on your mobile phone, check to see if you have any friends. But if you want to get into something that approximates more like PC usage, then perhaps you subscribe to our Brew Java application, and for a few bucks a month, it gives you enhanced functionality. On the sports side and with video, you just want to log on to foxsports.com and check a score, check a schedule. But if you're a big sports fan, you subscribe to Sprint Access and you get the Fox Sports channel, and you're willing to pay for that because there's a value proposition there. So I think there's going to be all sorts of both subscription and ad supported, but we got to make that entry point easy and ubiquitous to get the audience there and let them sort of make the choices that they want to make.
In other words, I mean, not so different than the web. You get them in with something relatively low cost or even free, and once they see the value there, they may be willing to pony up a certain amount of money per month.
Yeah, and I think the internet is largely free, and it may be that that's the way we go on mobile. But you also have the cable television model where people pay for cable television and they also watch ads. And if the price is right and the value proposition is there, there's a hybrid model. So I think it'll be interesting to see how mobile comes down. It'll probably come down somewhere in between the two.
Any emerging models for ads that are particularly compelling? I mean, I've heard a fair number of people say, skip the video, skip the display, the is too small. Just a very discrete little piece of text is enough. I mean, what's your sense about that?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of contextually relevant text ads in mobile. That's obviously, if you play this out and you replicate the internet on a mobile phone, then you're going to see the same business on phones as you do online, and you can imagine who the big players in that space are going to be. But on the display side, I think there's going to be room for traditional banner advertising. There's going to be the opportunity to do some cool custom stuff on mobile where you click through and there's contests and fulfillments and sweepstakes and stuff like that. So it'll be all different types.
Now, are you fine in the whole possibilities of what you can do, whether it be SMS, video, audio, are there any applications that you're finding particularly explosive?
Well, we're partial to our own MySpace Java application that we've launched on Singular. It's done extremely well, and we're very happy with it. And I think over time you'll see that available with other operators, both here and domestically. I'm a big fan of Sprint Access and their new public consumer offering, which I think is important in that they're going to have a very value-priced bucket where I think it's $14.99 a month, and you get unlimited SMS, you get unlimited web surfing, and you get a couple of basic channels of video. And I think that's a really clean, easy, smartly priced package of data that you sell to the consumer to get them to understand what's available. So bullish on that as well.
What do you think about the whole idea of, for example, cable companies starting up their own private label mobile services and so forth? I mean, this could be, from your perspective, you could see a world in which you're where you're on the Verizon IPTV channel, you're on Verizon Wireless, you're on online.
Yep.
Yeah. How's that working for you?
Well, I think we're actually there today in some form through Sprint and its JVs with some of the MSOs and MobiTV, which is doing some back-end work on that. So technically, we're actually, and this is Fox Sports I'm speaking of, we're actually part of a quad today. It's very, very early days, and there are significant rights issues, particularly on the sports side. We'll have the same Fox Mobile Entertainment, which focuses more on the entertainment properties. They will have similar rights and guild issues on the entertainment side. But if you look at MySpace, user-generated content, still some rights issues, but fewer, and there might be opportunity there to do something cross-platform. So we'll definitely get there, but it's going to be a long way off. You know, you just can't pipe 265 digital television channels to mobile phones today. It is, even if you could clear all the rights, you can't clear that kind of spectrum. So
right.
It's early still.
Yeah. What's your take on the rollout of mobile television? I mean, you're obviously you're part of it. A
Yep.
big part, Fox to go.
Yep.
What are the prospects?
That's NBC to go, but we'll let that slide.
Oops.
Yeah. Very bullish on mobile television. Fox Sports is part of every mobile video package today in the States, in some form or another. I think that the consumer proposition hasn't been worked out yet, and I think that's a very challenging one. The pricing, the messaging. If you look at media flow, the user experience is fantastic. You pop open the phone, you press a button, you're watching television, you change channels. You know, that's an awesome consumer experience, but consumers aren't really aware of that yet. And of course, there's limitations to media flow because the final mile is effectively analog. There's channel limitations, whereas on the data network you could have sort of theoretically unlimited channels.
Right.
So I think we'll figure it out, but I think it's got to be, you know, we're all in the business. We all know about this stuff. You walk out on the street, the average consumer today has no idea that they could watch video, and even if they subscribe to the package, it's clunky. You got to go through a menu structure. You pull up a video clip. It's slow to load. We have a long way to go. But if we can, you know, keep getting the message out and get the price right with the consumer and the messaging right, I think it'll take off.
I mean, it's interesting. It's a sobering thought. I heard recently that 2% of American consumers currently, I can't vouch for that, but I've heard it. 2% of American consumers are using video on anything like a frequent basis today. Mm-hmm. So we obviously do really have a long way to go. Now, this is not your area, but clearly with Fox, Fox played a very critical role in the launch of data services, wireless data services in the United States with American Idol. And the way that happened was the complete integration, right, of the cell phone into the base program. So you aggregated the audience, and then suddenly you aggregated the text messaging. To what degree is that part of your strategy going forward in terms of integrating, for example, live television into your programs?
Right. So, you know, that's probably most applicable to foxsports.com and the things that we can do with the broadcast and cable on air. David Hill, who's chairman of Fox Sports, is very bullish on mobile and very excited about it. I think you're going to see a lot more of that going on. That's sort of the integration of text messaging into television programming is becoming, you know, part of the landscape now. A Deal or No Deal is a great example, and you'll see more of that. What you got to find the value proposition is how is it additive to the broadcast? Is it going to add viewership? Is it going to add interest? Is it going to be really a value proposition to the consumer, or is it going to be something that's just a distraction and they can't figure it out? So we've actually been doing that for years on Fox Sports. We did Super Bowl MVP balloting a couple years ago. We've done virtual coach, virtual crew chief. So we've done a lot of it, but you'll see more of it, and we're going to try to make it more recognizable and understandable to the consumer.
And what's interesting about this is, despite the fascination with video, and every show we put on, video is always at the top of everyone's minds, it's fascinating that the most interesting and lucrative applications still have to do with plain old text, right? And as far as sports goes, you could imagine where an addict would want to get their sports scores wherever they go, and a mobile phone is the perfect device for that, right?
Yep, absolutely. So, you know, as I was saying earlier, particularly sports where scores are ubiquitous. I mean, that's got to be a free, easy, ad-supported service. There just has to be no barriers to that, and then let the avid or the avid fan upgrade to, you know, Fox Sports Mobile Pro, which is our Brew Java application produced by Glue, and it's very slick, and it's you know, it's $5 a month, and if you're a sports junkie, that's a very cool tool to have on your phone.
Right.
But a lot of people just want to check the score, and they don't need that. So you have to sort of offer them both and find a way for both to sort of live in the ecosystem.
Right. Now, talking about barriers, I mean, there's a very significant difference, as we know, between the international market here between the off-deck, the not exactly the wild, wild west off-deck market in places like Europe and Asia, but an extremely free environment, much closer to what you're used to experiencing on the internet. We don't have anything like that, and you know, even with Verizon, your brew applications and so forth, they're very exciting, but again, it's a very controlled environment. How important is it for you to break out of this controlled environment to really tap the potential of your programming in mobile, and how open are American carriers to doing that?
Well, you know, we're certainly not in any hurry to break out or break away from the operators. You know, we do all manner of business with them on mobile. They're big time advertisers on our websites and on Fox broadcasts. So, you know, we have excellent and ongoing relationships with them. And plan to do so in the future. I think, you know, we've got to find our respective place in the sun, and we've got to figure out what each party is adding, and that gets to issues like, you know, revenue splits on advertising. And then, you know, you have to look at powerful brands and the ability of a brand to appeal directly to its audience, particularly on mobile. And I see that as additive. If you're you know, I read this website, velonews.com. There's probably like 6 people who read it. It's a cycling website. But they're on their site today saying, you know, bookmark this URL on your mobile phone. And that's exactly what they should be doing. Obviously, there's other brands out there that are much more powerful than velonews.com that could do the same thing. And so I think what you're going to see is multiple points of entry, multiple offerings. But it'll always, from our perspective, we intend to be in business with the operators.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, you're really talking about almost like when we think of search, we think of companies like Google and Yahoo, but we rarely think about companies like, well, not companies, but engines like Internet Explorer or like Firefox. I mean, the simple act of bookmarking could be huge, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, search and discovery is another sort of macro issue that the industry has to get around. I don't think, you know, as a content or a media company, I don't think we'll be the ones that'll provide that solution. But obviously, you know, again, the experience on the mobile phone has got to be able to replicate as much as possible as what you have on a PC. And people just got to be able to get there and find what they want. Because, you know, you're also dealing with latency and other just inherent issues that maybe we can't solve today, and screen size, and there's some obvious limitations to the experience on a mobile phone. So as an industry, we have to compensate for that and make it as otherwise easy as possible.
Okay. I'm going to open it up for a few minutes of questions with John before our break. I always ask this question of you at some point, which is, I want to do business with Fox. I'm from outside the country, or I'm from Wichita. I want to do business. I want to get my idea in front of you. What do I do?
Well, you email me at john.smelzer@fox.com.
What a brave man.
Yeah. I was going to serve up
brave man.
someone else on my staff, but I decided not to.
Yes. Okay. I think he deserves a hand for offering out his email address. Use it wisely. Okay. Do we have any questions for John before we go to a break here? And while you're thinking about ideas, how about your core advertisers? Are they really getting the idea of cross-platform yet? I mean, are they interested in it, or is there a big sell job that remains to be done?
Definitely interested, but not really ready to take the plunge, I would say. I mean, we're really right there. You know, they're looking for things like, you know, metrics and reporting and, you know, click-through and sell-through, and you know, we're just dealing with an immature space. We're just not where we are on the internet, and it's going to take I believe it's going to take a leap of faith, and you're seeing it today already, where an advertiser will say, you know what, I'm going to sponsor this program on a brand basis, and I'm going to take a flyer on getting my brand on this platform, and we'll figure out the reporting and the metrics and the performance metrics on the back end.
I mean, what I find fascinating about that whole we're not about an immature market and we're not there yet is if you look at just the internet. I mean, even dog years don't seem to apply anymore with the speed of the deal making, the speed with which all the networks, the supposedly hidebound networks, moved all their primetime shows, or most of them, to the internet was staggering. I mean, that was over a period of several months.
Yep.
So this so-called immature market could, you know, all it needs is a spark, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. If you wouldn't mind identifying yourself too.
I'm Danny Wright. I'm with a company called Limbo. And my question for you, John, is what if there were a platform where one of the brands that might take a leap of faith were to sponsor that enabled the brand to have a direct one-to-one interactive conversation with the end user, and all along the end user is being presented with advertising messaging, you know, woven intelligently into that interactive flow, and then brought that end user to transaction? Do you think something like that is kind of along the lines of what your potential sponsors might be amenable to?
Yeah, if it brought them to a transaction where they, you know, responded to an advertisement, I don't think we're going to be in the business of trying to bring, if a user comes to check out a sports score, we're not going to try to sell them a t-shirt in the first 5 minutes. But if there is an advertiser that has a program and it's clever and it gets people's attention and they click through, and then at that point the consumer has self-selected to be in that environment, and there's a transaction to be had, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. More leading questions for John.
Hi, John. My name is Rich Wong. I'm at a venture capital firm called Excel Partners. Question, I wanted to sort of poke into the thing around on deck, off deck, and the carriers, just to get your view on that if I could. Do you think that outside of the United States, as Fox extends its reach outside of just the US, do you think that you're ultimately going to have to play more off deck, or do you think that the majority of the strategy is going to be focused primarily still on operator and carrier relationships as sort of primary means for distribution?
Yeah, I don't know about percentages and which is going to be the predominant model, but you know, we're going to be in business with the operators overseas, and we announced a deal with Vodafone earlier this year and MySpace for their top 5 markets. I mean, I don't think there's going to be this jump off and try to disintermediate the operators. So, but on the other hand, you know, we do, particularly with MySpace, we do have a huge audience, and we do have a lot of potential to do things off deck, so we're just going to have to find the right mix of that.
Hi, John. I'm Kevin Fitchard with Telephony Magazine. This question is going to seem kind of garbled, so I'll just kind of lead into it. A lot of your competitors have launched some pretty innovative services lately. I mean, like Disney, ESPN, NBC. But not specifically the services, but the pricing models are interesting. They're just becoming part of Sprint and Verizon Wireless's deck. They're not charging premium, like our incremental fees for the actual content. And I guess my question for you is, I mean, given that you do want to work with carriers in the future, do you imagine the premium applications and the premium content you offer, will it be a separate charge for Fox Sports or for, you know, Fox programming, or do you think it will work otherwise in like a larger bundle? Like what is the way that a consumer wants to pay? Do they want to pay for individual bits per month, or do they want to pay $20 a month for, and get Fox along with a lot of other things with it?
Yeah. So for our content offerings, I would definitely lean towards the bundle. I think, you know, and again with our new deal with Sprint, where, you know, for a really reasonable price, you get a bunch of value add, and one of those value adds is a suite of 4 or 5 basic channels, and one of those channels is Fox Sports. I think that has I think that'll resonate with consumers, and that's sort of a bundle. In the case of MySpace, you know, MySpace is people are very intensely interested in MySpace, and it has the strength to go it alone. So, you know, today we offer a monthly recurring subscription, a Java application on Singular, and again, you'll see that rolled out across all the other operators, and that's something that can stand on its own 2 feet. I don't think you see MySpace bundled in with other social networking offerings, for example. But bundling Fox Sports with a number of other video channels makes sense.
John Healy, LA Times. The last panel talked about the split issue between content providers and carriers when it comes to advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Could you comment a little bit about that, what you're seeing in terms of how far the discussions have gone in terms of figuring out what the split should be?
Yeah, so those conversations are happening, and I think each party to the transaction is striving to show the value that they bring, and there's a lot of value that each party brings, and so obviously can't talk about specific negotiations, but we got to find the right. We got to find the value that makes sense, because clearly if a carrier is featuring Fox Sports prominently on its deck, it's going to drive incremental traffic that wouldn't already be there, and furthermore, through their ability to geo-target and target through the bill and behavior, they might drive a higher CPM. So clearly there's a piece of the pie for them there. But on the other hand, you got to look to long established models like the cable industry, where issues have been resolved. There's a thriving business that's going on. So I think we have to be contemplative about this, but I don't think we can take too much time, because I think we're leaving money on the table.
We have time for maybe one last question, if we have any. Otherwise, okay. Let's give John a big hand. Thanks, John. Okay, so we're going to go a networking break at this point. So there is refreshments out there. We welcome you to go out there. It's a prime networking opportunity for you. So we'll have, I believe it's 20 minutes to half an hour for that. And then we'll see you back in just a little bit.